A lot of people say that they are following their intuition, but what they are actually following and listening to is their anxiety, their projection, self limiting beliefs, or hope. And the problem is, those three can feel very convincing, and you may trust them. And then you tend to call the outcome of that a lesson. And it wasn't a lesson. You most likely misread yourself. And the problem with that is, if you can't tell the difference, you will keep trusting signals that are actively misleading you. Welcome to the authority practice. You experience something fearful and you immediately call it a warning. Okay. You may experience an attachment and label it alignment. You can even experience someone avoiding you and deem that as a sign. And then you trust it, you run with it, and you consider that your intuition, but it's not. In no moment there was a pause or a moment for observation or to evaluate the situation. No responsibility for what's actually driving that feeling. And because of that, you end up following signals that you don't actually understand. But in the heat of that moment, you will tell yourself that you trust yourself, but you didn't. You just reacted out of patterns to what you felt. And so we need to what we need to do here is to separate two things that people tend to blend together, and that's intuition and discernment. So, not everything you feel is intuitive, it's intuition. Sometimes some of the things you feel is fear, it is conditioning, or it is like an attachment, or you are projecting from a habit. And if you don't know the difference, you will keep misreading yourself and misleading yourself in the wrong direction, because intuition is quiet. It is clear. It it doesn't argue. But on the other hand, discernment is what you interpret. It is what you have evaluated. What what the feeling is, what you have evaluated when you have that feeling. It decides what actually is true. So most people tend to skip the discernment part. And if your discernment is off, you will misrepresent every signal you feel. So, no, your intuition isn't broken. Your interpretation is, because you're not using intuition. You're what you're using is discernment, but you're not fully able to define the concept of it. And so that is why I created this video. So let's separate the two very clearly. Intuition is a signal. Discernment is what you do with that signal. Intuition might tell you something feels off. Discernment asks you, is this a real misalignment? Or is this me trying to avoid something uncomfortable? Do you see the distinction between the two? Intuition may say, this feels good. Discernment will ask, is this actually good for me, or is this familiar? Because those are not the same. And while we're here, we're going to be honest. Some of you don't trust your intuition because every time you follow it, it'll lead you somewhere painful. I'm going to slow it down because what is actually intuition? Or was it that you feared of being alone, or the hope, you had hope that someone would change, or that the projection of who you wanted them to be, they're not? That is not intuition. That's you negotiating with reality. And to just break the illusion, this is where I notice a lot of people get it wrong, is they trust the feeling without even questioning the source. They trust that what they feel, for example, if they feel something intense, that they believe it. If they feel something strong, they follow it. But intensity, it doesn't equate the truth, because fear is very intense to me. Certain attachments, you can have feel very intense. That doesn't mean you're meant to be attached to that person. Trauma responses are intense. That doesn't make them accurate. And where a lot of people get it wrong is they feel something immediately and assign meaning to it. They never sit with it. That feeling must mean that this person is right for you. You just met a person, it feels so intense. This person is right for me. That this excuse me, that this discomfort must mean I should leave. That if someone pull away, that mean I should chase it. But no, that's just interpretation. That's not intuition. So if you're telling yourself that, oh, this feels right, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have an intuitive download that that is intuition. And so today I did something different. I created a, you probably not going to see me while I show this, but I'm going to put it up so you can take a screenshot because we're going to go over it. I have a whiteboard of what the difference between intuition and discernment. And so before we circle back here, if you want, take a screenshot. I hope I have it in the camera right, but I'm going to go over it. So intuition is a quick inner knowing. It's quick. Intuition feels calm, it's neutral, it's clear, it's not urgent. Intuition isn't going to argue with you, it's not going to beg you, and it's not going to like rush you. Because I just want you guys to see. Because intuition is that inner knowing that you feel something without having all the facts. You don't even know, and it doesn't rely on logic. Intuition is that gut feeling that you can't explain. It just is. It's fast, it's instant. It's a gut feeling. It comes from within. You can't explain it. And intuition needs discernment. You can be right or wrong in the event that you don't have discernment. So, intuition will spark the starting point. It sparks the starting point. So, before we mention the discernment, I want you to know that anxiety feels urgent. Anxiety is loud, it's repetitive because a lot of times it's fear based and it pushes you to act now. All right, so discernment here, it's a thoughtful inner process. Discernment causes you to take an action. Discernment combines with wisdom, observation, experience, and spiritual guidance. It can separate what's true and what's false. Discernment is it's an evaluation to see if something really aligns with your values. And so when you are using your discernment, you want to pause first. You want to pause and consider some things. And you want to ask yourself a few questions. What is true in this situation? What is true? What are the facts that we can't deny from? What aligns with my values? This is why discernment is important. People tend to use intuition and discernment and incorrect terminology when in fact, you know, you can have discernment, but in order to have discernment, you have to know that you had an intuitive download, and now you have to say, "Oh, I just got, an intuitive instinct to do something," because intuition is instant, excuse me. And so you have to have the ability to ask yourself a few questions to see is which direction in which you should move. So you're going to ask yourself, what are the possible consequences and what is the wisest next step? All right, so discernment is tested wisdom plus the clarity. Intuition nudges you to pay attention. You receive something, you've received a feeling, because a lot of times we talk about what we feel. You feel called to move in the direction of somebody. So that tells you, hey, pay attention. Or, I'm going to get to some real life examples. So let's not skip ahead. All right. So with discernment, it's much slower, and it's slower simply because, again, this is an action. This is a choice you make to make sure that you are moving in alignment. It's a moment in time where you are reflective and you reflect on what you are experiencing. You use your reasons, your values, experiences, and context. This is the moment where you take your time and weigh your options. Being able to make the right option is having the capacity to be discerning. It will lead to clarity and wise action. It confirms, it refines, and it redirects intuition. So a lot of times when you have intuition, and it can be you receive a thought that you think is intuition. It can be fear based, or it can be just from routines and patterns, and you projecting and you're hoping and you think it's intuition and it's not. But when you utilize the skill of discernment, it will lead you back to that intuition that thought pattern that you had, that quick inner thinking and inner knowing that you have, and say, oh, I read that wrong. What I meant to say is, this is a warning. Oh, or this is a green flag. Or we're going to give you I'm going to give you some examples shortly. So this, again, discernment is going to confirm what is true. Discernment is the skill of telling the difference. So you have to, discernment is something, it's an action. You have to do something. You have to utilize your teaching, your knowing, your thought. You have to use it. It's a process that you have to go through in order to be discerning, in order to say, hey, this intuitive instinct that I feel is accurate. And most people have, you know, they have built it. So what they do is they take a calm signal and tend to run it through a fearful mind and come out with a completely different message. And a lot of times this takes practice, but that's why we're here. All right. So I'm going to give a few examples. And before I do, if you need to take another screenshot, here you go. This, can you see? Let me get out of the camera. Here you go. Take a screenshot. All right, cool. So, a few examples. Let's say you meet someone and something feels off. That is intuition. But you don't make a move yet because you're not sure which move to make. And so you have to have discernment. And discernment is going to help you make the right choice in that decision. So then your mind says, maybe I'm just overthinking, or they're actually really nice. I should give it a chance. That's not discernment. That's you overriding what you already know. You felt something was off. So that part was intuition, but all the questions that came with it doesn't mean that you're discerning, even though you are attempting to make a process. So discernment would say, something feels off. I don't need to explain it right now. I'll observe. Because remember, discernment is a process. You have to go back and ask yourself these questions. What is your inner, what is your beliefs? Like, am I avoiding something? And what emotion am I avoiding? And then let's use another example. Let's say you meet someone and the intensity and the chemistry, and there's a pull, and it feels very intoxicating and just intense to the point where you want to approach it, and you say, my intuition is telling me that this is deep. I want you to pause right there, because no, at that point your body is being activated. That could be, it could be attraction, it could be familiarity, especially if you have made that choice and had that pattern in the past. It can even be a trauma pattern recognizing itself. Discernment would slow that down and ask, is this aligned or just familiar? You, intuition is not going to rush you. It's going to be calm, and it's a gut feeling, but it's going to be a clear, distinct knowing, inner knowing. And so let's use another example here. Let's say you're texting someone and they stop replying to you, and your body just, starts to feel tight, because remember, the body keeps the score. Intuition is going to tell you, it's going to tell you that something has changed. But right after you realize something has changed, anxiety kicks in. And anxiety is going to tell you that, oh my gosh, this person is losing interest, or oh no, did I do something wrong, or oh no, I need to fix this. So you end up sending another message, and now you're not responding to truth, you're reacting out of fear. You moved ahead, even if the intuitive instinct was right. You never gave your intuition a chance to prove you accurate because you made a move. Something changed and maybe they replied, but you don't know. And therefore, you let your anxiety control your actions. So let's move on to another example. Um, let's say that you are about to take a risk, you're about to start something or say something or even leave something, and suddenly you feel resistance. And my intuition is telling me that this isn't right. Pause. Because your nervous system is trying to keep you safe from change. Remember, our bodies are going to do whatever to keep us in a safe zone. And sometimes that may mean uh hurry up and responding to someone when just to get ahead of the situation, and it can lead to certain other patterns and behaviors like people pleasing. Discernment would ask you, is this a warning? That you again, you started something, or you are about to say something and you leave something but you feel resistance. Ask yourself, is this a warning, or is this fear of expansion? Because if fear is there, then you having the capacity to recognize it will open the door for healing, for you to make a better choice and the right decision. Okay. I'll give one more. Let's say that you get an opportunity that looks really, really good on paper, and your intuition is going to ask you or say that, hey, this isn't a lie, but it's quiet, and you're looking on paper. Let's say to you, according to your circumstances, you may feel that you really need this opportunity, and your intuition going to tell you, but this isn't a lie. And intuition is quiet, and but your mind jumps in, and you like, this could be big. I don't want to miss out on the opportunity. What if this is my chance? So you say yes. You take you take that opportunity, and later, not far too long later, you feel drained, or you feel misaligned, and you feel confused. Then you say to yourself that you thought this was right for you, but actually no, you just ignored what was right because your intuition told you this isn't aligned. And had you follow those steps, you pause and consider, you ask yourself these questions: what is true? I apologize if my voice keep going in and out. I'm trying something new, but I will get uh, figure it out. But if you ask yourself what is true, you ask yourself a few questions to see about your discernment. You filter it and to focus so that you can make the best decision for you. Instead, had you did that when it came to that good opportunity, you would um, be able to make a better decision. So let's move along. And I want to say that the part people don't like is they immediately think that they are struggling with their intuition, and it's not that you are. You struggle with sitting in the discomfort of what it tells you, because intuition will tell you to leave a relationship, to leave a job, to get up from where you're sitting and walk away. It would tell you to stop people pleasing, stop saying yes, stop doing whatever you're doing that is holding you back. You don't listen. It would tell you to don't engage in something. You refuse to listen. that it would tell you, it would tell you that something isn't for you, and yet you still choose not to listen. And that requires, and sometimes it can require you to disappoint people, to let go, to choose differently. um yeah, to really upset others, and to make you feel uncomfortable because of patterns. So instead, you reinterpret it into something easier to live with, that is more digestible for you. But that was your intuition. You don't have to stop there. If you want to actually trust yourself, you need to stop asking, what do I feel? And start asking, what is true, before I explain it. You know, um, giving things the truth of the matter of what actually is. Um, what about asking yourself, what could this be coming from? Like, this feeling, this emotion, or this thought. Not to just over analyze it, but to take responsibility for what you're actually feeling. And then you may ask yourself, what decision would I make if I wasn't reacting to what I'm feeling, or this feeling? Because a lot of times we're reacting to what we feel. We are, as humans, we are emotional people, but if we haven't learned to how to handle our emotions, or to be emotional intelligent, or we don't know how to translate what we're feeling, we must sit with it. We must sit with what's going on before we rush and make a decision. And in that sitting, that's where discernment starts. Your intuition, it isn't trying to confuse you. Most times it is just a direction, is guiding you. I like to say that intuition is guidance to your soul, to what your soul needs, because that ego gonna always pop out. It's actually, very simple. You don't build self-trust by following every single feeling you have. No. I just have so many things, so many ways to explain that, but I'm gonna leave it there. You don't. You build it by learning which ones are actually true. Cause there's a lot of people that move on the very feeling that they have, instant feeling that they have, and they're inaccurate. So you have to build it by learning which ones are actually true. You have to sit with it, and you have to ask yourself those uncomfortable questions. You know, and just a reminder, because not everything you feel is intuition. And if you treat it like it is, you will keep misleading yourself. This is the work of self authority, and this is the authority practice. Please like, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I appreciate all of your time today. I appreciate your like, your comment, and your share. But don't forget to subscribe, because I have a full series of the authority practice that I would like to share. A lot of this work comes from my own patterns and my own ways, and and having siblings and relationships and friendships, and it's just something that naturally comes to me, that I realize that will be of service to others, that a lot of people can utilize, because we're not taught these things. And I feel like some of these teachings should be in great schools. So feel free to let me know your thoughts. Feel free to share this with a friend. And please don't forget to subscribe. I really, really appreciate it. And I want to say thank you, and I love you. And until next time, have a great one.